How big a gaffe is this, and could it damage Canada's relations with India? Well, joining me now from Vancouver, former BC Premier and Federal Liberal Cabinet Minister Ujjal DOSANJH. Mr. DOSANJH, I know you have a lot of interview requests these days, and I'm very grateful that you joined us. I saw, though, your tweet, angry tweet, saying that Khalistan in your Twitter feed, it says Khalistan has seeped into the veins of this administration, and you're a Liberal. What makes you think that this was more than just a mistake, even a bad mistake, that somebody just goofed on the background checks? Why do you think it says more than that about the Khalistan separatist movement in Canada?
Well, the fact is that the Prime Minister's leadership campaign was fronted by some of the Khalistanis, well-known past Khalistanis in British Columbia. And you're known by the company you keep. And it is not an accident that Mr. Atwal hangs around the Liberal Party of Canada even today. I'm sure the young Randeep Shrai, whom I don't blame totally for this, he may have included him in a moment of weakness on his list because he may have donated money to his campaign or volunteered for him. But ultimately, it's the failure of the PMO, the RCMP, and the High Commission all together to include him in the receptions. It's a security failure, screening failure. It's in fact more of a political failure when you take this kind of individual to India that has already told you they're worried about Khalistan. Then I think it's also a political diplomatic failure. But the fact is, we know Mr. Trudeau and his cabinet ministers and other people from other political parties have been cavorting with Khalistanis, playing and dancing with them, and going to their processions and parades where murderers like mass murderer Tulwinder Singh Parmar, the Air India bomber, are paraded as heroes. Their portraits are paraded as heroes. They go to the temples and speak at them where these portraits hang as heroes' portraits. And they have not stopped. And they have always used the freedom of expression as an excuse. Freedom of expression exists for the Khalistanis in Canada and in India. But the freedom for the politicians to associate with them is the question. The inclination, the proclivity of various politicians to continue to hang around these parades and the Khalistani temples and the Khalistani activists in various forms and shapes, and to be speaking from those stages where Khalistan is promoted, where these murders are glorified, that is the nub of the problem. That has never stopped. That's got to stop. I think India will make it clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister should know that if you want to have good relations with India, you can't damage the integrity and unity of the country. By associating with the enemies of India, with those that want to dismember it, you are putting yourself in the camp of adversaries of India. And that's why you may never have a good relationship with India, and that's a problem.
Are you saying
it's the largest democracy in the world?
Are you saying then that there may be a price to be paid here, that the Indian government will treat this as a real setback to relations? Because after all, the less they say about it, surely the better off they are, because this whole affair also throws rather an unflattering light on the Indian government's own mistake in giving Mr. Atwal a visa in the first place, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're being hypocritical too. So they have to figure that out. But even before this, Mr. Modi had told Mr. Trudeau that there was a problem. And that stands on its own, with or without Mr. Atwal being present in India. And I think that problem that stood on its own has now been aggravated. And Canada has never taken steps to make sure that our politicians and our cabinet ministers and our leaders don't hobnob or associate or cavort with the separatists who want to dismember the country. That may now happen as a result of this incident. In a sense, I'm saddened that our relationship will perhaps deteriorate a little further, but I'm also happy that it's been exposed, that we might begin to actually take actions to remedy it.
All right, now, you've been very hard on the Trudeau government here as a Liberal. But isn't it fair to say that Stephen Harper, the Conservatives, also had some MPs who played very nice with the militant separatists? They showed up for the parades with the martyr posters, that the Indians complained to Mr. Harper in the same way. And then now you've got Jagmeet Singh of the NDP doing the same now when he refuses to object to the martyr posters for the Air India bomber. They're all playing the same game, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I've been saying. All, Khalistanis have found places and power within all major political parties. There's no exception. All three major political parties nationally are complicit in the Khalistanis trying to dismember India by being on their stages, by being in their parades where they glorify violence, by being in the parades where they promote dismemberment of India. And that hopefully stops. Both as a Canadian, as an Indian, I'd hope that our relationship improves, that we stop interfering in the internal affairs of India, even indirectly, even remotely, so that we can get on with enhancing trade and people-to-people contacts with the largest democracy in the world, which is not perfect, nor are we. All
right, final word quickly. What's the best course of action for the Prime Minister now? How can he put this to rest? How can he convince Prime Minister Modi at their meeting tomorrow that this is history now, that he really has put it behind him?
Well, I think the Prime Minister has done that, started doing that by making that statement saying that the person would not be included in the reception and the MP would take responsibility. But, I think he will, it's important for him to send the message that this is an aberration, this is a mistake, that it won't happen again. He doesn't need to remind Mr. Modi that his government must have given Mr. Atwal the visa to go there. That's a separate matter. But ultimately, I think that we need to make sure that if we want good relations with India, that we need to actually ensure and assure the Indians that we don't hobnob or hold any sympathies or associations with the Khalistanis in Canada, which we have not done so far. We continue to associate with them.
Thanks for your time, sir. Ujjal DOSANJH, former BC Premier, former Federal Minister of Health. Thanks.